Okay, if you're watching this one, we had a mandatory Zoom session today, so I don't know how many of these we did together. For all I know, possibly all of them. It just depends on how efficient we were and how many questions you had. So you can skip through the ones you know that we've done already, which probably includes this one, but I'm going to do it anyway just to be on the safe side, or in case you want to look back at this to study later. What they're not showing us on this picture are these edges. So it's a rectangular, it's drawn pretty badly. It's a rectangular prism because it has, it's a prism because it has parallel and congruent bases. And it's a rectangular prism because those bases are rectangles. And with a rectangular prism, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's still the same prism formula, volume equals base times height. Volume equals area of the base multiplied by the height. And the area of the base, since the base is a rectangle, would be use the rectangle formula, the parallelogram formula, base times height. So area of this base, which I've shaded, is 12 multiplied by 8, aka 96. And then you substitute into the volume formula, 96 multiplied by the height of the prism. Now, the height right here of the rectangle was this height. If I'm calling this 12 the base, this must be the height. I'm talking about the rectangle, the 12 by 8 rectangle. But then when I'm multiplying by the height of the prism, that's the 9. Because the height of the prism is the distance between the bases, the perpendicular distance between those parallel and congruent rectangular bases. And so 96 multiplied by 9 is 810 and 54, 864. The units would be inches cubed, because it literally means there would be 864 1 by 1 by 1 inch cubes that would fit inside of this big rectangular box. And the nice thing about these kind of puzzles is they're called self-assessing. So you can check down here and see if you see the answer. If you don't see it, something went wrong. And the directions tell us to write those letters in the spaces above the exercise number. So I'm going to put a TH above the 1, so a TH goes here. Now before I go on to the next one, just in case I have some amazing student who is using this as notes, which would not surprise me a bit, if I called these rectangles my bases, this one and this one, that would still work. See, with a rectangular prism you have 3 pairs of parallel and congruent rectangular sides that you could call your bases. And if you chose to use those rectangles as your bases, I'm going to do it in red over here. When you did base times height, it would be 8 times 9, which is 72. Then when you did volume equals area of the base times the height of the prism, it would be 72 multiplied by, this is what would give you the same answer as before. Now the height of the prism is the distance between these yellow bases. Now the height is 12 if I'm using these yellow faces as my bases. And 72 times 12 is 720, and 144, it's also 864 inches cubed. If you've previously learned that rectangular prisms are length times width times height, and you're thinking, why are we going through all this? I don't disagree. It's just that this prism formula works universally for all prisms, whether it's a rectangular prism, a hexagonal prism, a triangular prism, a trapezoidal prism, and so it's worth learning. And it also applies to cylinders, and cylinders are sort of like a circular prism.